Today is Tuesday, September the 1st at 9:10 a.m. Mr. CLA, before we get into the big items, let's take the items that we can move on quickly because we need to be in and done by 10 a.m. to go to council. So what are the more direct items that don't have cards?
Certainly, we'd like to recommend for consent, actually, item number 4. It's simple. It's a contract with a firm to provide outside legal services to Department of Water and Power. That item is simply a time extension. There's no additional funding. In addition to that, you could dispense with you could actually hear items 3 and 5 first before you hear items 1 and 2. If you quickly.
All right, so item 4 can go on consent without objection?
Yes.
All right, and then I can't hear because the door's slamming. What did you say about item 5?
You could hear item 3 and then item 5 if you like first before you hear items 1 and 2 jointly.
Okay. All right. Great. All right. Let's go back. So then let's go back to 3 and 5 next.
Item number 3, DWP and CAO report relative to the execution of 6 agreements for geotechnical services. These agreements amount to a total of $21 million.
Yes, we're very happy to be here today. These are very important geotechnical contracts that we're looking at, and rather than trying to do real short-term ones, 3-year ones, and keep them at our place, we really needed these long-term contracts because we have several projects that are multi-year. The as-needed are important because we have such a variety of projects that come up and issues of a geotechnical nature, and so we need to have the flexibility of assigning tasks as needed to these various firms. We've got about a $3 billion overall capital program, and all of these projects require extensive geotechnical services. Some of the important projects coming up are our reclaimed water projects that all need extensive services, our dam and reservoir improvements and rehabilitation all are going to require some of these services. We have augmented our own staff and are leading the way in most of these projects, but are having this additional help with these experts from these firms to give us the assistance and guidance that we need.
So tell me how the contracts will assist in aiding the water system in terms of improvements now on a going forward basis.
Okay, we have one of the major programs is our water quality improvement program, which has we're required by the EPA to meet federal regulations. We have major projects at our dams and reservoirs to cover those reservoirs. These will help us in doing that geotechnical work that's the basis of all these major projects.
What are the key water storage and distribution requirements that are being imposed by the federal government and the state government in the context of this contract?
The long-term 2 surface water treatment rule, the disinfection byproduct rule are the 2 major water quality rules that are in place. Beyond that, we have a commitment to the mayor to increase our water reclamation to 20% in 2020, and these will be used in establishing many of those projects.
And then where are we at now in terms of that goal?
In that goal, we are, I think, we have got about 7,000 acre-feet, I think, that we've gotten in place right now. We're at about 2%, 2% of our 20%, so we've got a long ways to go. But some major initiatives coming.
Okay, and then tell me the terms of each contract and the cumulative total amount.
Total amount, I think, is $21 million for all 6. There are 6 of them, and they're each for 6 years.
Beginning now?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Correct, did you have any questions?
No.
Okay. And Mr. CLA, in hearing, do you want us to hear 3 and 5 jointly, or do we?
No, actually separately. Just there were items that could easily be dispensed.
Yeah,
I know that you have a heavy agenda with 1
Well,
and 2.
we don't have a quorum at this point, but should we have one during the course of the meeting, we'll come back and ratify this. But for now, we'll move this forward without recommendation from the committee.
Or would you like to hold it until you get a full, or you
Yeah.
can forward it as a communication to
We
the
can
council?
forward it as a communication. If somebody else comes in, we can change it.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's go over to 5.
Recommending approval.
So you're recommending approval on that one then?
Yeah,
That's good, okay.
in the event they,
Okay. Item number 5, City Attorney and CIO report and ordinance relative to the issuance of solid waste resources revenue bonds, Series 2009A. Staff from CIO's office.
Yes, Mario Vasquez with the City Administrative Officer. The CAO and the Bureau of Sanitation do request authority to proceed with a bond issuance of up to $75 million for the acquisition of containers, equipment, and vehicles in support of the city's solid waste collection program. And authority for this bond issuance was actually included in the 0809 budget, but our office did not proceed with the issuance for several months due to the volatility and uncertainty in the financial markets. As the financial markets have recently stabilized, we now recommend that the city proceed with the bond issuance.
what services will the equipment that's purchased with the bond issuance be used to support?
We have representatives from the Bureau of Sanitation here, and they can come up to the table, but my understanding is it's in support of the solid waste collection program.
Good morning, Jorge Santisteban, Bureau of Sanitation. The equipment that would be purchased with this bond would be our refuse collection trucks. We're currently in the process of converting all of our diesel fuel trucks to LNG, clean burning fuel vehicles. And the purpose of this bond, the majority would be to purchase those type of vehicles, in addition to purchasing containers to be used for the replacement of damaged containers.
Another quick question. In the solid waste resources revenue fund, is there sufficient money to pay for the debt service of this bond without limiting other programs that program or that fund supports? In other words, is there enough money in the fund to do this without compromising other programs?
Yes.
Yes, there is. We set aside $2.7 million in this fiscal year for this bond issuance, and the debt service will not exceed that amount.
What rate do you expect to get with this bond issuance?
Today, we think it's about 3.43% to be paid back over 10 years.
Now, has the city recently issued similar bonds?
For solid waste collection program, no. The last one we did was 3 years ago in 2006, but we have issued obviously other bond issuances, a judgment obligation bond, a MICLA program, a lease financing, but we have not done a revenue bond for the solid waste program.
And how was the performance?
The financial markets have stabilized within the past several months, so that's why we felt comfortable going forward to the committee seeking approval for this bond issuance.
And then your expectations regarding this particular issuance are what?
Well, we expect to sell approximately $75 million at a good rate, 3.4%, as I mentioned earlier. On a negotiated basis, we've selected 2 underwriters that will go to the financial markets and borrow the money for us. And we expect to receive the rate we think we're getting as of today. Obviously, we can't predict what will occur tomorrow or next week, but as of today, we expect an interest rate of 3.4, which is what is expected in the financial markets.
How long does it take for you to lock in once you go?
We select the date we will accept bids for the bonds, and we give notice a week ahead of time. So really, it's whatever is occurring on that day, barring any unexpected events.
And if that goes above what you're expecting to receive, then what do you do?
We can, the day before, 24 hours ahead of time, cancel the sale or postpone the sale.
Okay, so that's our inherent checks and balances?
Correct.
So we
yes.
don't overextend ourselves?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, on what basis have we decided that the markets are stable enough?
We have financial advisors that we work with, that we hire, who work with the financial markets with the underwriters on a day-to-day basis, and they have recommended that we feel comfortable going out now for this bond issuance.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We will still have a quorum, so
Okay, so recommend approve at this point as a communication, perhaps?
Yeah, just as a communication.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So that takes us back to
1 and 2.
1 and 2. And I have a lot of cards on 1 and 2. How long is the department's presentation? How long is the department's presentation?
Down to 10.
But, okay, because I'm trying to, I have a lot of cards here on 1 and 2, and I want to make sure everybody has the chance to speak. So why don't I let them speak first and then keep it to a minute each, and then allow people, and then have you come up and make your presentation. That way we'll get everybody in. And I also have public comment building too, so, all right. Let's get Martin Schladiger, Daniel Weissman, Todd Martin, and Soledad Garcia. And, Madam...
1 minute.
Yeah, 1 minute each, so we can make sure that everybody has a chance to speak today.
Ready for me? Hi. Martin Schlager with the Coalition for Clean Air. Hello. Appreciate the chance to be in front of you today, albeit an amended version here. Looking forward to the presentation because we're here to continue to learn about Department of Water and Power's investments in renewables and conservation and really the future of our energy supplies. It is essential that this department stay on a course of cleaning up their energy supplies. Our dirty energy supplies are a liability. And I think some of those liabilities are clear in the prices that are getting passed on through the ECAF, a majority of the ECAF being from fossil fuel nuclear generated power, but some of them aren't yet calculated. So continuing on a path towards conservation and cleaner energy supplies is critical. That's going to require investment, and we're looking forward to learning what the investment plan is for all this infrastructure that's needed. And we look forward to talking with you more as we learn more. Thank you.
Thank you. Daniel Weissman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You have written material before you, and I hope you'll have the opportunity to read it in more than 1 minute's time. The real issue here is the nature of this uncapping of the ECAF. To my opinion, it is not the ECAF we are talking about now. We're talking about the ability of the Department of Water and Power to maintain its AA bond rating. That doesn't pay for any electrical power that is delivered to any customer. So we're seeing a pattern here. A year ago when the base rates came up, they came up because they hadn't been increased in 13 years. Last spring when Measure B came up to produce good jobs, but it only produced good jobs for people who are already employed by the Department of Water and Power. Now we're uncapping the ECAF, but we're not uncapping the ECAF, we're creating more bond money. I think we need more forthright and more direct responses from the department, and I encourage you to require that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Todd Martin, and following Todd Martin will be Soledad Garcia. Following Ms. Garcia will be Dee Audette. If Dee Dee's here, she can come on up.
Good morning. My name is Todd Martin. I represent the Midtown North Hollywood Neighborhood Council. I echo Dr. Wiseman's sentiments, and in addition to which, the Midtown North Hollywood Neighborhood Council has submitted a list of objections to this rate increase that the department is seeking. Given the time limitation, I've submitted that list to the secretary and asked it to be made part of the record of this hearing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Garcia.
Thank you. Soledad Garcia. Consider remanding this ECAF to LADWP for revisions. There are many options available, but time constraints do not allow for it. Energy cost adjustment factor was to help defray spiraling costs of fuel and energy. It is not a means to attain or maintain bond ratings. Two council committees, council and the MOU were bypassed, directives ignored, and a duly signed document minimized. This is a misnomer. The committee and council are excluded in any decision-making on rates. Should this be allowed, know that a triple and possibly quadruple increase would be imposed and it would have no end or control. Do not allow the ratepayers who are your constituents to be abused. Protect and defend. Insist on a control. Do not approve an energy cost adjustment factor without a cap. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Baudette.
Thank you for this opportunity, Jan, and nice to see our new council person here.
Thank you.
Good to know you. I distributed a paper called Lack of Trust. Its top line says September 1. And I won't bother you with the details that I have included there, but they relate to my specialty, which was taxation, federal taxation. And but by other ways, there has been some distrust generated, most recently by a document sent out to ratepayers. Now, I have already received 2 calls from people out in my neighborhood who want to know, what does it mean? And so I went to the home of one neighbor, and I looked at it. It's 4 pages. I couldn't understand it. So I think that we have a job with the ratepayers to justify when we want to raise their rates, because they're already now not very trustful.
Thank you very much. Bill Corcoran, Ryan Wiggins, Dr. Williams, and Cindy Bloom. You can all come up. Come on up, Dr. Williams. Okay, Bill Corcoran.
Hello, Bill Corcoran with the Sierra Club, and welcome to Councilman Koretz, who I'm happy to have as a council member. I am here to talk today about ECAF, which is an appropriate device for financing. The current structure of it is failing. It does need to be addressed. What I think we need to see in this is a greater effort to educate ratepayers about the liabilities of our dependence on fossil fuel in our current power mix, why we need to make these upfront investments in renewables, because long-term they're actually cheaper and have far fewer liabilities. In addition to that, however, we need to see a detailed infrastructure investment plan for the utility, more detail about the solar plan and how these investments will result in net revenue effects for the city through investments in basin here in energy efficiency and in basin renewables, such that ratepayers will see what they're getting for their money and how it's benefiting the city and the health of the planet and the ratepayers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ryan Wiggins.
Good morning, Ryan Wiggins from Endowell. Looking at this, as if we look back, basically this department has been operating under a rate freeze for almost the past 2 decades. And what is being paid for right now, the capital is available, is being used to basically maintain and finance fossil fuels. The looming carbon costs, as well as the maintenance of that infrastructure, is very costly, and it will get only more so. So going forward, we need mechanisms. The department needs the tools that will be available to it to actually make this transition to renewables. As my colleagues have said, there's virtually no fuel cost for renewables. We can't say that for fossil fuels, and we also can't say that the existing fossil fuel costs will stay low. So it's a risky investment for us to keep on only investing in fossil fuels, and we need the financial capital and the means to finance renewables. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Williams.
Clyde Williams, El Sereno. ECAF, it was supposed to be a minor adjustment tool for maintaining financial feasibility. However, what they're proposing now is to have a non-discretionary accelerator. This is the same as the subprime insurance debacle. What we need to do is reduce the ECAF from what is proposed and to ensure that there's a 20-year plan, because somebody in the bond industry has to have assurance that we can pay this. In most projects that I've been involved, we had to project the ability to pay for a 20 to 25-year period, including capital replacement. The ECAF is not the appropriate non-discretionary means of minor adjustments. Come back to the council when they need a rate increase. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. Cindy Bloom.
Hi. Thank you, honorable council members. I read the DWP presentation. I have some concerns. I think there, although I'm for renewable energy, I think the DWP proposal to impose 5%, 33%, and 54% increases on the ratepayers is absolutely ludicrous. I think a slower ramp up and DWP revisiting their business plan to cut costs first and use the rate increases in a responsible manner is much more appropriate. If rates go through the roof, which it is under this plan, it's going to hurt businesses. It's going to cascade into them passing along the costs to an already very troubled economy. I found a spreadsheet buried in the DWP website which allowed me to calculate my new bill. Well, guess what? I put in my current bill and it undercalculated it by 6%. So I really don't trust the graphs and the charts in that spreadsheet because what it came up with versus what was on my bill was incorrect. It compares itself to SCE, but not other municipal utility companies like Burbank Water and Power. They can deliver the same product a lot cheaper. I think DWP needs to revisit their business plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Colleen Callahan. And then, yeah, and then let the department do the presentations. Okay, great. Okay. Because that presentation's awful. Okay, great.
Good morning, Colleen Callahan with the American Lung Association. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on the energy cost adjustment factor issue. We have 3 recommendations in this regard. First of all, we ask you to retain the ECAF concept as a useful device to protect against having to factor in all uncertainties of costs into an inflated base rate. While not exactly a popular topic, given our reliance on fossil fuels, it's not realistic to expect that we can forever operate under a rate freeze set in the 1990s. Because as you know, the direct costs of dirty energy are projected to rise. Fossil fuels are a majority of the ECAF, and as the fossil fuel prices rise, dirty energy becomes even more of a liability. So secondly, we ask you to help customers manage their bills by encouraging DWP aggressive conservation efforts and investing in renewable energy.
Thank you very much. We're hearing 1 and 2 together, and so I'm going to call up Humberto Camacho and then Jack Humphreeville. Jack, you want to come up now? Todd Martin. Is Todd here? Is Todd Martin here?
Yes, ma'am.
Come on up. You're going to speak on 2 now. And then Dr. Weissman. He's gone? Is he gone? Is he gone for good, or?
He might be back another day.
Okay, all right. Okay, if he comes back, let me know. Okay, Humberto.
Good morning. Humberto Camacho, Pico Union Neighborhood Council. Over here to oppose those increases. People in our community are asking me, how come we conserving more water and we're paying higher rates? And the other day, the question of the mayor using so much water, I couldn't answer this problem. If the mayor uses water as he pleases, how can, we justify that we should save more water and pay more? The other problem that they asked me, what about the desert? You're using tons and tons of water, and we need the water in Los Angeles. So please, remember that the unemployment rate is higher now than ever before in Los Angeles. Our poorest community are out of work, and we cannot afford those rates, especially when it's an escalator closed that they automatically put higher rates on the water and power. So please think about the ones who pay the money for water and power. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Humphreeville.
these are my comments on the ECAF. DWP is proposing is essentially eliminate the cap on the ECAF. They say there's a 10% limit, but you can drive a truck through that 10% limit, as indicated by the projections. Furthermore, the projections do not take into consideration the mayor's new goal of no coal by 2020. Rather than approve this, I think you should send the ECAF back to the DWP with the following instructions. One, they should bifurcate the ECAF, one for fossil fuels and the other one for renewals, and renewals including spot purchases in the open market. Secondly, is you ought to make sure the DWP comes up with a solid investment plan, as mentioned by Mr. Cochran earlier. It should address the solar plan. The previous solar plan that was presented at the beginning of August had no numbers whatsoever. It should address PPAs and also the concept of control as opposed to asset owned. And it also ought to have a detail of the solar plan. I trust you to do this because I don't think it's appropriate that you cede control to the mayor of the Department of Water and Power. Thank you.
Mr. Martin, and then following Mr. Martin, okay, Mr. Wiseman is gone. Dee Audette. Dee, come back, come on up. Okay, Mr. Martin.
My objections are similar to what I voiced a little bit earlier on the list that I submitted and asked to be made part of the record of this hearing. Mr. Humphreyville has outlined the main points of objection that this neighborhood council finds about the ECAF proposal. It's just not going to work. It's going to penalize the ratepayers unnecessarily, and the whole thing is to maintain a bond rating which has no relationship to ratepayers and their issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Audette?
Thank you. On August 4, I attended a meeting of the Board of Water and Power Commissioners. At that time, this document was submitted to the board, and I call your attention to page 9 and the following 9 or 10 pages devoted to utility-built implementation. Now, this is practically the same thing that was incorporated in Measure B. It's a very expensive way to bring solar. I think I'm an environmentalist, and I want solar. I don't think that this is the easiest and best way to get it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mrs. Garcia and Dr. Williams, you will be our last two speakers on item 2. Okay. Ms. Garcia, you ready to go?
I have several of these, yeah. Let him...
All right, Dr. Williams, why don't you go first?
Got it. Go ahead.
Here's the appropriate place for cost recovery. However, conservation requires that we have an escalating tier system. One of the problems, though, is where are we going with this? What's going to happen in 10 years from now? There's no plan. There's no strategy. There's not much information at all. Outreach is relatively terrible. The basic element is we don't know if this is the beginning or the end of anything. We need a plan. A 10-year plan would be fine. 20-year would be better. Skaggs uses 25 years right now. Why not the same plan for DWP, along with the estimated cost increases and a timely implementation of the rate structure? We don't have it. They haven't given that to us. Is this a bait and switch? I believe it is. I think it's the beginning of the subprime in DWP. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. Ms. Garcia.
Thank you. Soledad Garcia. As soon as the resolutions on ECAP and the electric rate restructuring were approved by the Board of Commissioners. 70 neighborhood councils submitted their responses within 48 hours of the approvals. 97% did not believe that conservation was the motivating factor for the ECAP or tiering. 82% did not believe that power restructuring conserves energy throughout the year. Summer is more logical, but not the rest of the year. 87% opposed quarterly no ceiling ECAP charges. 96% opposed going beyond the SB 14 and AB 64 by 2020, which is 33%, for California Renewable Portfolio Standards, known as green power. This is not a revenue neutral increase. Few family residential customers will be able to stay within the first tier. The second and third tiers will be heavily impacted. Please consider remanding for reasonable tiering allocations. Thank you. Made it.
Thank you very much. All right, so that marks the close of the public comment on items 1 and 2. Now I'd like to ask the department to come forward and make a presentation.
Please note, Madam Chair, both these items are scheduled for council consideration tomorrow as well. And on item number 1, you have a deadline of Friday to act. Certainly. Item number 1 and 2 are agendized for council consideration tomorrow. And you have a deadline to act by this Friday for item number 1 as part of the 245 process, 21-day review process.
And then what's the deadline to act on item number 2?
There's no deadline on that one.
All right.
Madam Chair, good morning, honorable members of the committee. My name is David Nahai, and I'm privileged to serve as the General Manager and CEO of the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. With me here today, to my left, is Jeff Peltola, the Chief Financial Officer of the department. To my right, Aaron Benjamin is the head of the power system. And we're here, of course, to urge your favorable consideration for items 1 and 2 on your agenda. They are companion pieces. Item 1 regards a modification of the energy cost adjustment factor cap. Item 2 would, in effect, ensure that the effect of your action would not have an effect on people in Tier 1, the people who use energy the least, but would have an effect with respect to those who are in the Tier 2 and Tier 3 categories, the people who use energy the most. And as to them, the hope is that this will provide an incentive for additional conservation. I have comments to provide to you, but I think in the interest of time, what we should do is launch straight into the presentation, which will be made by Jeff Peltola. And as we go along, I'll take the liberty of adding comments as appropriate.
Good morning. This is about I'll try to keep it short, 10 to 15 minutes.
Before you get into it, let the record reflect that Mr. Alarcon is present, and I see that Mr. Cardenas is about to enter the room.
And we have given much of this presentation we have done since May to the neighborhood councils, to the board. This was about an hour-plus presentation that we gave, going through every last page, which obviously we can't do today. The first on page 1 is just what we're going to talk about with 3 main things: the driver of the costs and rates in the first bullet, how much and when the rate increases are needed to meet our financial targets, and that what mitigating steps that we're going to talk about, which is really the second item that is before you. Our financial requirements for the power system, the first thing is we want to always maintain our AA bond ratings. We have a very large capital program that you'll see in our financial plan coming up in a couple of pages. So we target a minimum debt service coverage of 2.25. We plan for maintaining the city transfer at 8%, so we have to have sufficient net income for that. We want to maintain our operating cash reserves at a minimum of $300 million, which is essentially our checking account. We want to make sure we always have $300 million. And we don't want to go over 60% debt on our overall capital structure. If we go to page 3, in May of this year, we had our financial advisor, Gardner Underwood & Bacon, take a look at these targets and make sure that the targets were in line given what's happened in the financial markets. I won't go through all the quotes, but you can see the 4 quotes listed, which are in support that we need to have a change to our ECAF to ensure that we can go forward with these programs. If we go to page 4, the IEA survey, that was the 5-year survey that was done recently in February, performed by PA Consulting. Again, there were positive comments that mentioned that the ECAF needed to be changed as well. Page 5 is IID, the Imperial Irrigation District. They were downgraded recently from AA to single A, which is what we're trying to prevent from happening. We have Dan Hartman here from PFM. If there's questions about this, maybe we can take after. But essentially, what we're trying to do would avoid what happened to IID. So they went from AA to single A. On page, go ahead.
Jeff, let me just add this comment. Going from AA to single A would mean that our interest expenses would rise substantially. And so we would end up in a situation where our ratepayers would still have to incur additional costs, but for nothing other than higher interest rates.
Right. And
so we have to strive to make sure that we keep the interest rates very low, because otherwise our ratepayers would be really making an investment for nothing.
And I have Dan Hartman from PFM. So Dan, talk about the two things that would impact us both on the short term and on the long term debt.
Right. Your current ratings are AA3, AA minus, which are the minimum AA threshold, and that is the distinction between AA minus and A plus is a major category shift in ratings, and both from a short term bonds, of which you have a lot of variable rate bonds, which are some of the lowest cost capital. If you go to A plus, it requires a letter of credit from a bank, an increased level of credit enhancement, and that credit enhancement would be extremely costly of just that movement on the short-term bonds. And on the long-term bonds, when you issue simply long-term fixed-rate bonds over 30 years, as the department does frequently, the interest differential just between that category is roughly 40 to 50 basis points, is 0.5%. And over the life of a 30-year bond deal, that is a substantial amount of cost increase for the department's capital program.
Thanks, Dan. So if we go to page 6, is a summary of our financial plan. And let me just point out a couple of things in here. The first highlighted area is the energy cost adjustment, which we're going to get into the actual expenditures for that. But you can see in the 2009 where it's $1.028 billion, and there's also some of the deferred revenue that includes that. Going out through 2014, it's $1.758 billion. And also there's $180 million, some portion of that deferred revenue in there. There's a significant increase in the ECAF, and we're going to get into the expenditures for that. The borrowing that Dan just talked about is in line 3, and you can see for the next 5 years we're borrowing $660,951,000, basically $1 billion for 2 years, and then $835,736. That's a significant portion of our capital expenditures. And this is assuming, again, this financial plan is assuming that the ECAF portion goes through. And then our target down under number 9, debt service coverage, is at 226, so right at our target number that we're looking for. And I'll talk a little bit about how we get to that to come right at that number. And the capitalization factor is what our portion of debt is. So you can see by the time we get to 2014, we're at 59.4%, essentially at our target of 60% debt. We have also listed out the average rates for each of the different classes. Again, to be forthright and transparent, we show what those rate increases are going to be, and you can see them starting from the 2009 fiscal year at 112, going out through each of the different years. Most of this and a lot of the discussion around the 2020 goals, all of these financial requirements we're talking about are for the 20% by 2010, and we'll show you where those expenditures come from. Okay. If we go to, you can just see graphically on page 7 shows what our ECAF, and you can see it's going from 2009 about $1.37 billion and is growing up to $2.1 billion. Again, if you look in 2011 is where the big portion of the increase comes from. In the following page, page 8, shows the actual numbers in millions of dollars on the top half of the page. And on the bottom half of the page is the price per unit. So that's essentially how much it costs for each megawatt hour. To take this in context of what the overall impact is, the RPS, you have to look at 3 different things in here. The top line being natural gas, and then the 2 lines RPS generation and RPS transmission. When we bring in wind power, when we bring in solar power, what that does is it offsets natural gas. We burn less natural gas. So if there's more wind, we burn less natural gas. But the overall impact going forward, going through the math, is $244 million on the RPS. In addition, if you look at the coal costs, we're going from $448 million in 2008 to $592. That's gone up by $144 million. And maybe I'll let Aram talk a little bit about where that's coming from.
Madam Chair, that's
that's the projections that we have on the markets, the coal markets, as far as the supply and demand, and we're forecasting that that market is going to get narrower, for our power plants, and we're factoring in also rises in the transportation costs that we have to get the fuel to our power plant. So that's the factoring in of going from $45 to about $100 per ton for coal prices.
And Aram, talk a little bit about the triggering event in Utah.
We had the collapse of the mine in Utah that kind of created a whole regulatory environment for shutting down some of the supply lines that we had. That created the supply side, to be narrowed in the Utah market. So we're going out to Wyoming right now and getting some coal from there, and transporting it over the rails to our power plant. And we're hoping that opens up, so we can get some relief on the prices. But so far, our indications are that the prices are going to be going up. We have a temporary dip in the market because of the gas prices going down, and we saw some relaxed pricing, as far as the spot market goes. But I think that's a temporary, our forecast is that's going to be a temporary deal, and we have to plan for the long term.
Before we get more deeply engaged in the conversation, because I know we're going to run out of time, I'd like the CAO to come up and give their report on the record so we have full consideration of all the information that we need today. Who's going to report? Don't go anywhere.
Before you begin with your report, can you please let us know what contributed to the report barely getting to the city council members dated September 1st?
Olivia Seves Along, City Administrative Office. Ray Serrana was planning to be here, but unfortunately he is stuck in EERC. So I will present the CAO's report on this. Just to backtrack a little bit, the council asserted jurisdiction over the ECAF modification on August 14th. The board took action, as is proper, on August 4th, and after the assertion by the council on August 14th, it was referred to the CAO by the Energy and Commerce Committee. Energy and Environment Committee, and then we received it, and from that time until pretty much Friday, the CAO has been working with the DWP to try and get as much information as possible to the committee in time for reports, and unfortunately, we ran out of time. Therefore, that's what you have before you. What we have to report on is basically what the department has been presenting to you is their case for the increase, which included their cash on hand target of $300 million and a capitalization of debt versus cash on hand of 60% to 40%, and to have a debt coverage of 2.25%. The current ordinance that was set by council after many years of having control of the ECAF. It was frozen back at the time of deregulation in order to try to control costs when it was thought that DWP would enter into deregulation just as the rest of the California was going to do. And in 1998, they kept levels at the 1997 rate. And then it was determined that could not continue because it was eroding the financial structure of the department. So in August of 2006, it was unfrozen and a cap was given of 1/10 of 1 cent. At this point, the department is asking to modify the cap, but in fact what it's doing is removing the cap and is asking for those limitations to be 2 cents per 200 million under collection and another 2 cents for every 200 million under collection. We believe that the information that is given to us by the department has been extensive, and we just need more time to properly evaluate this information before the committee and to the council. We believe that from August 14th to this date was not sufficient time for us to give a proper evaluation.
What would be your recommendation today, given our time limitations then?
Keeping in mind DWP's obligations for their financial structure, and I do believe that they need to keep in mind those issues that they have in the cash on hand and trying to be sensitive to their needs as well. We would request at least 30 to 60 days. I would prefer 60.
So if we're acting on the proposed restructuring.
Right.
All right. Now, on item 1, we do have some time sensitivity.
Right. We would have to.
Item 2, we have plenty of time to do whatever we feel we need to do. Now, for myself, and I don't know about the other members, you know, I've got about a page and a half of questions that I want to go through.
Right.
And I know that we have to make quorum at 10 o'clock. On the issue of item 1, I'd like for us to have the opportunity to put our questions on the record, and then I guess we will take action on Friday at the latest. And I'm inclined, unless something dramatic happens, to put the questions on the record and then send it back. Hopefully I can get the votes on that, because I think that we need a deeper, more well-documented conversation. As I've said to Mr. Nahai, I've shared this with him in advance, that I think the public really needs to fully understand what this means, and we need to hear from them before we make any strong choices one way or the other. And the fact that the CAO has made this statement that they need more time gives me great pause. So we have 5 minutes left. We can start asking questions now, but we're certainly not going to get through it, because I'm going to assume that all of you have some questions on this that you want to put on the record. Correct?
I don't know about on the record. I'd like to hear the answers.
Well, no, I think part of hearing the answers is you make the questions so that we can go through a process of due diligence to gather the facts for not only our consumption but for the public's consumption. So let me ask you this, since we've taken all the public comment today, do we have an opportunity Friday morning to do this before council?
That is an option if you like. The other option you have is to forward this to council without recommendation, or to approve or disapprove. I mean, those are basically your 3 options with regard to at least item number 1. Perhaps have the questions vetted there.
Where would you feel more comfortable asking questions, in committee or?
Well, after looking at the documentation, I don't think in the next 5 to 10, 15 minutes I'm going to get the answers I need. So at this point in time, I would make a motion to disapprove item 1.
Okay, I'll make a second on that for you then. All right, so we'll
I
make
third it.
Third it? You got a third? You want to hold out? Okay, we'll do it anyway. All right, great. All right, so we'll make a motion to disapprove at this time on item 1.
Okay.
Okay?
Item number 2, would you like to take an action on that, or without recommendation to count? That is also before you in council.
Well, we don't have time. We don't have a time issue on that.
No.
So we can put that on the next agenda.
Mhm.
We can have a fuller discussion on item 2 and do that in committee.
The only issue is it is before you tomorrow in council, so.
We'll continue. We can continue it
Okay,
in council.
continue in council.
I mean, if the members agree, I'd rather have the conversation in committee, because I think we have a lot more freedom to discuss in committee than we do in council.
Madam Chair, what's the timeline on item 2?
There is no timeline.
There is none?
No.
Okay.
Item 1 was the time sensitive. So if the members are comfortable with that, when we go to council tomorrow, I will ask for a continuance. We'll hold it in committee, and then if you would please make that only one of possibly 2 items on the agenda that day.
Okay.
So we can have the full hour to get into that.
Okay.
Madam Chair, one quick question. I'm not clear on what the ramifications are of turning down item 1. Does that just mean we take it up at a more appropriate time because of
Well,
the...
what we've done, and correct me if I'm wrong, is by disapproving the item, we have taken action on the 245, which was required in terms of time sensitivity, because we had to take an action no later than
Friday, where it's
of
deemed
this
approved.
week, either to approve or disapprove. So that means, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, that it will go back to the commission.
Yes, and if you'd like, if in fact that's what the council does, approves your disapproval action, in that case, you could submit suggestions as to what the board can do to rectify it and then bring it back.
So then when we have council on Friday, when we discuss our vote here in committee, we can put on the record on Friday the extensive reasons for our disapproval action here today. So then that DWP and the commissioners will take back from us the reasons why we disapproved, which is the way the 245 works, and then it'll go back to them to redeliberate.
Now, this is, item 1 is scheduled for Friday? Or
Actually, no,
scheduled for
they're both scheduled for tomorrow,
Okay.
but you have until
Last day
Friday.
to act was Friday.
But
right?
it looks as though the council will see this before them as a whole body tomorrow.
Yes.
the
Yes.
2nd. Okay.
So it'll be incumbent upon me to explain that, we have unlimited time on number 2, and that 1 is subject to the 245, and that's why we had to take action today.
Okay. That's my vote.
I'm not sure I can put all the questions together before.
I'm sure
can
some of
submit
mine.
No, but what I think we might want to ask Mr. Garcetti if we could just continue the matter to Friday and give us a greater opportunity to be a little more extensive with our questions.
What do you think, CLA?
We could probably arrange that if you like, a Friday morning meeting perhaps before.
I think
the
more
council.
time is fine, and if you feel that.
No, I'm not saying we need to have a committee meeting. I'm just saying that to put the questions together
In council.
for the
on the
council
record.
meeting, just that we
On the
might-
record in
a
council.
couple more days might give us more time to
Right.
hone in on what issues.
All right, so we can make that request tomorrow.
Okay.
To see if we can.
I don't think it's
Friday.
going to make a difference to the.
To continue
commission.
until Friday, okay.
No. And
Okay,
Okay.
the
we
president.
can do that then.
would-
All right, everybody in agreement on that?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
And Friday's
All
in
right.
the valley, by the way.
Could I express a couple of concerns?
Sure.
The first one, just longstanding with me, and bear with me once again, the extent to which this is related to the transfer, I got issues with it, okay? No, but with regard to the lifting of the cap, with no control, as it's tied to previous commitments in 2006 that there was going to be sufficient room to protect us against these kinds of occurrences, and that obviously, that forecasting was obviously off. What confidence do you offer that this forecasting is correct? And certainly that forecasting would be easier if you lift the cap. The whole point of lifting the cap is to gain the confidence of the public. And I don't think we've met that standard yet. So I think that's, and I want to thank the CAO for taking that position. We have to get the public's trust back with regard to DWP. And we're just we're going to be faced with ballot initiatives, I believe, that are going to be very counterproductive to your agency, that taking control away from you until you gain the trust back. And these kinds of actions, I think, diminish that trust, particularly given the time frame in which we're trying to be force-fed in terms of how much we have to know about these things, make decisions, and then we expect the public to know when the council members don't even know the full, don't have a full understanding of the complexity of all these issues. But fundamentally, you know where I am on the transfer. Number 2, I really have tremendous concerns about what happened with the forecasting in 2006. Why wasn't that adjustment sufficient? And how is the new forecasting improved, setting aside the lifting of the cap? I mean, sure, if we told every general manager you can spend as much as you want to spend, they would be secure. They'd be absolutely secure. I don't think we're going to give you guys that kind of power, and I think that's a very dangerous move. So those are my concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Alarcon, and if you would, when you come prepared to speak, I realize the CAO has rendered an opinion, but in terms of your forecast numbers of economic indicators, you may want to come prepared with some third-party verification, because, you know, it's one thing for you in the department to offer us numbers that you believe to be the case, but there's no inherent protection built in that someone who's objective and dispassionate or is disinterested in some way has reviewed those numbers in terms of trends and indicators to demonstrate to us that they were objectively derived. So when you come for our council meeting, I would like for you to come with that in mind and with that perspective in terms of your documentation. So,
an inquiry is with regard to item number 2 as juxtaposed with item number 1. If we don't move forward with item number 1, were you intending to hold item number 2, or and in any case, if we I would want to know what the impacts of item number 2 are, separate and apart from item number 1.
Yeah, because we have the luxury of time on item number 2, we're not up against time requirements because 2:45, I think that does provide us with the opportunity to get more deeply engaged in public conversation about that one without the pressure of time, so, or process in terms of having to send it back with a time frame. Okay? All right, great. Now, I still have some public comment cards. So let's bring closure to 1 and 2.
Okay.
And
You also have a quorum now. Would you like to quickly run through the rest of
Go
the...
back and ratify. That's all.
Item number 3, recommendation was to approve. 4, approve as well. And number 5, approve as well.
So that would be without objection. And then as for 1 and 2, they will...
Disapprove on number 1 and recommend the council continue, refer back to committee, number 2.
All right, thank you. This is the time for public comment for those items that are not on the agenda. And I'd like to call forward Dee Audette, Jack Humperville, Soledad Garcia, and Dr. Clyde Williams.
Yes, make this part of
Dr. Williams, are you still here? Okay, Dee, you're up first.
Hi, my name is Dee Audette. I'm from Venice. Before they all leave, I hope some of these people from DWP will hear me say that I feel that they're a department that's being squeezed from a lot of different directions these days. And believe it or not, I do feel for them. There are 8,500 people there who are doing the best they can to bring us water and power. And I think they need to be encouraged that we believe in them. The other thing that I wanted to say today is we're in a period of change. And it's not just change, but the rate of change. Things are moving faster. A department like DWP will probably feel this more acutely. I'm very happy to say that Wendy Gruhl told the Neighborhood Council, DWP Oversight Committee, she is doing everything she can to assure that all departments use the same accounting system. Now, that will be wonderful because then we can all look at the documents and understand what we're looking at and not have to translate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, just for the record, I have a lot of respect and appreciation for Wendy Gruhl, and she's our controller, but at the same time, it's easier said than done to say that you're going to use the same accounting methods in every aspect of the city for the simplicity of making the statement. But there are technical reasons why certain accounting systems methods are being used in certain areas. So with all due respect, that sounds very good, but at the same time, I can guarantee you, the public, Wendy Gruhl, and everybody else, that at the end of the day, if Wendy Gruhl follows through with the authority that she has to try to mandate that, she is going to find that, yes, some changes will probably be made, but I can guarantee you the entire system within the City of Los Angeles, proprietary departments, the city and its vast departments are not going to use the same system because that would not make sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Humperville.
My honor, Soledad.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you were up, but Soledad's, whatever, either one. I'll take it.
Okay.
Start the clock again.
Since I'm here first, I'll do it. The current law, this requires that only investor-owned utilities generate 20% of the power from renewables by 2010. There's no other requirement to law for any future target. These private investor-owned utilities, such as Edison, PG&E, have not as yet, as you know, met their goal. But LADWP renewable projects are to exceed this percentage through a self-imposed target of 40%. Laudable, however, the ratepayers were not provided with a choice of billions of dollars of indebtedness. Public-owned utilities, such as LADWP, are not required to meet the 20% renewable portfolio standards. Just as the owners of the municipal utilities are given ballots to vote, so should a municipal utility provide the owner ratepayers the opportunity to express their position on renewables that the entity recommends. The decision should be in the hands of the owners, not in the hands of the employees or appointees.
Thank you. Mr. Humperville.
Thank you. As a general comment, I ask, do you trust DWP's numbers? They're the same people that gave you the numbers on Measure B, which were dramatically wrong. They had an independent consultant, but they didn't vet the numbers. PA Consulting still disagrees with those numbers. In 2007, DWP told us we'd have a relatively modest 3% rate increase. Year-over-year rate increases in the power side for a number of people in your district as well as in the valley have been at 21% this last billing period. The projections do not reflect the mayor's no coal by 2020 initiative. DWP, you requested DWP to get back to you on March 25th within a month. You haven't seen anything really yet. No outreach plan, no meaningful solar plan with any types of numbers. They will tell you that their rates are lower. That's because low taxes, deferred investment, coal-fired power offset by the IBEW premium. We need a ratepayers advocate, not only for us, but for you guys too. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Williams, I think he has departed. All right. Well, then that marks the end of our public comment, and this adjourns the meeting. Thank you very much.